Well, it's November and Thanksgiving is coming up pretty fast. And I thought I'd share with you today one of my favorite recipes from my cookbook, which is pop it in the toaster oven. And I've served this a lot on Thanksgivings, and it always is a great success. It's just such a wonderful dessert. And you know, you guessed it, it's pumpkin pie. But it is maple-glazed pumpkin pie. You make a maple syrup glaze on top of the pumpkin pie. And the crust is a little bit different too because it's an apple juice crust. And this is a really simple, easy recipe to do. But before I even start, I'm going to preheat my toaster oven to 350 degrees. Then I have the pie crust ingredients assembled here, and we're going to do the pie crust first. So, here's the assembled ingredients for the apple juice pie crust. I have, of course, a bowl, and then I have a pastry cutter. If you don't have one of these, you can use forks. They work too. Here is 1/4 cup of margarine. You can use butter if you like. I think margarine tastes just as good. Here is 1/4 cup of apple juice, and then 1.25 cups of, I'm using my favorite, unbleached flour. I'll be adding also a pinch of nutmeg and salt to taste. For me, that's probably going to be maybe 1/4 teaspoon. So the pie crust ingredients are going in now. Here's the flour, 1.25 cups. Here is the margarine. I'm putting in a sprinkle of nutmeg. You can leave that out if you want. I think it gives it an interesting flavor to have that nutmeg in the pie crust. Dash of kosher salt. Here is the apple juice, and I think what I'm going to do is just be a little cautious with this. I'm going to add just that much, maybe half of that amount, and then I'm going to start blending it together. And you can see here, I'm going to add the rest of the apple juice because I can almost pinch it together, but not quite. It needs to be a little less crumbly and a little more moist. And you can see here, I think there's enough moisture in that to roll out now. It should press together like this, but it shouldn't be so moist that it's sticky. There's the dough. Pie crust dough is in a ball, and I'm going to sprinkle this surface. It's just a covered surface with flour. And what I want to do is roll this out as best I can. I'm still working on these skills to fit this pie pan here. Oh, slowly but surely. Whew. Well, you can see that my skills with making pie crust aren't as developed as they probably should be. But I'm working on it. And if your skills are like mine, and you need to cut and paste, you can. If you add a little water here, you can paste the crust in. I've done this a lot. And you know, when the filling gets in and the beautiful dessert is on the plate, who will know? Whew, there's the cut and paste pie crust. I bet you can do this better than I can. Whew. Anyway, what you want to do now, make some fork marks in the crust, and then I'm just simply going to make a little pattern here. Okay, the toaster oven is up to temperature, which is 350. I'm going to put this in for about 20 minutes, but I'm going to check it. All I want to do is just lightly brown it. Now, while my cut and paste pie crust is browning nicely, I'm going to combine the pumpkin pie filling ingredients. And that consists of a can of pumpkin pie filling, 1 egg, a can of evaporated milk, 3 tablespoons of maple syrup, and I do say I prefer getting the pure maple syrup for this. This is my preference for this filling. I like a nice, tasty, spicy filling. So I'm going to put in half a teaspoon of powdered ginger, half a teaspoon of nutmeg, and a teaspoon of cinnamon. And then I'm going to add salt to taste, which will probably be about, a quarter of a teaspoon of salt. So all of these ingredients go into the bowl. So there's the crust, and it's beautifully browned. Now I'm going to add the filling. The oven is up to temperature, so I'm putting the pie in for 40 minutes, and I'll test it with a knife, and if the knife comes out clean, then I know it's done. I'm setting the timer right now for 40 minutes. And while the pumpkin pie is baking, smells absolutely wonderful, I'm going to be making the glaze. So you can do this. If you don't have a stove, you can actually broil this in your toaster oven, or you can use your stove, and in a small saucepan, what I have here is 3 tablespoons of dark brown sugar and 3 tablespoons of maple syrup, and that's going to be the glaze. So what I'm going to do, this doesn't take very long. I've got it on a medium-high heat, and I'm just going to keep stirring it until everything is dissolved and it's bubbling. There's the pumpkin pie, and I have to say that it was 40 minutes at 400. My pie crust, I learned a little bit on this. It's very brown around the edges, and I think my pie crust was very thin. And I think with a thin pie crust, if I do that again, what I would do is I'd put an aluminum foil collar around the outside so it doesn't get quite as done as that is, but it smells wonderful. And now for the glaze, which I'm just going to put on like this and then spread it around. Well, I have to say that friends were over, and this is the last remaining piece of the maple-glazed pumpkin pie. I've tested it. I have to say it's really good. Really great flavor, I have to say. Maybe you don't want to wrestle with the pie crust. Pie crust to me is always kind of a wrestling match. So you could buy a commercial crust. There's some really good crusts out there. Most of them have a lot of sodium and fat content. There is a vegetarian crust that is absolutely delicious, that would be great with this. So I would say you would cut your prep time down to probably 10 minutes, then pop it in the toaster oven, and my gosh, in no time at all you have this wonderful, wonderful pie with the maple glaze on it. Just an added touch that makes pumpkin pie a little more special than it usually is at Thanksgiving. And by the way, have a wonderful Thanksgiving.